You know what match was coming up next, because this was an actual wrestling pay-per-view instead of an endurance test, and they went 3 hours and 20-something minutes with, 6 or 7 matches. Nice and easy for everybody to digest. It's time for the main event, Roman Reigns and Drew McIntyre. And can they recreate the magic of that immortal night in Wembley Stadium when the hometown hero comes out on top? Probably not. We know that in the overall scheme of things, Roman Reigns is the guy, but they've built this thing up. They're going to give us a fight. They got plenty of time. There's no Heyman and no Usos, but Roman still looks like a badass coming out, and the people were ready for this. And they knew it at the start. They took their time. They started with a long lockup. They were working into it because they knew they already had the people. And this is the match they paid to see. There's no reason to start at 100 miles an hour, and they're going to put some time in. But Roman Reigns is so good with the little things because, just early on, showing that he was rattled, just a little facial and backing off and ducking under the rope, that's a different dimension, and it means something when this guy seldom backs up. So when he does, people go, oh, this is wrestling 101. And Drew obviously had to kick Roman's ass for the early part of this and shine a little bit, and then had a way out. He was distracted by Cross and Scarlett were sitting at ringside, and they threw the water bottle at him and distracted him so Reigns could take over. And I got to be honest with you, McIntyre sells great for a big guy with the facials and the body language and everything. He's got the gist of this. He's a good worker. But they a nice little spot there where Roman Reigns calls for the microphone and asks Cardiff to acknowledge him, and turns around and McIntyre flattens him with a fucking headbutt. And, then they start, McIntyre does a comeback, goes for a superplex, Roman foils it. They have the fight, they go back and forth, couple of big pops on 2 counts. And then there was a point where everything kind of slowed down, and I was like, where are we going? And then, again, Roman goes for the Superman punch, and Drew turns it into a DDT and sets up for the kick and runs into a Superman punch 2 count, and then everybody sells forever. So I think at that point, they're going to do a big exchange, and then everybody's going to sell forever because it's a big show match and they got to go 40 minutes or whatever. Did you see that? Could they have tightened this up in the middle? Or was it because it was a stadium crowd, they wanted to make sure everything sunk in on everybody? What do you think?
I think maybe that, just because of the way WWE does things, and I think it would have been acceptable, not to get ahead of ourselves, if the finish hadn't been so flat, it wouldn't have stuck out so much after the fact.
Well, anyway, again, they go for Roman getting the face lock. He's choked a lot of guys out with the front face lock. McIntyre would power out, Roman to get it again. They had great facials. The struggle of this thing, the story they told, that was good. Another spear through the barricade. Don't you think at this point the WWE should start trying to get a refund on from their barricade supplier? These are fucking defective. Everybody sold forever. And then they do the spot where they bump poor referee Charles Robinson, and music plays. And here comes Theory. Did they always play music for the guy cashing in the Money in the Bank briefcase? Or isn't it good enough he just runs down out of nowhere?
As far as I can remember back, they have, but I don't know about the early days when they first created the wonderful briefcase.
Yeah, but anyway, the whole deal is, here comes Theory. Well, both guys are down. He's going to cash in the briefcase. He runs right to the railing and hands the briefcase to a referee and says, I want to cash in. And Tyson Fury, the boxer, stands up from the front row and knocks the shit out of him. And that got that may have been the pop of the night. So then they continue the match and they trade a million blows and kicks and etc. And finally Drew hits his finish. gets a 2 count, and there's Solo Sikoa from NXT pulls the referee out to the floor. And because he's a member of the bloodline now, too, legitimately, he's the Usos' brother, right? So then...
I believe so, yeah.
Sikoa jerks McIntyre's neck on the top rope, and McIntyre flies into the ring, into the spear, boom, 1, 2, 3. So, it wasn't the flattest finish I've ever seen. They wanted to make, or Sikoa to make an impact, but yeah, I don't know, after all of that, it seemed like, well, maybe it was a little flat. I don't know. Are you right? You don't have to be right all the time, Brian.
The finish, yeah, it was really flat, because I think people were expecting the title change. They just built up the 2 years of Roman Reigns with that big celebration on SmackDown.
But were they smoking the hopium to think there was going to be a title change?
I guess so. I mean, in Cardiff, Wales, the guy comes out with a fucking sword. Place is going nuts for him.
He should have used the sword.
I think people also, I shouldn't say that. I don't think a large enough number of the crowd were in on this, but I think some people were expecting Heyman to show up as well.
That actually probably would have... I know they wanted to get Sikoa started off right, but if Heyman had showed up and screwed McIntyre, I think it would have probably been more exciting and accepted a little better. But that wasn't the face-off or the end of the show. They still had the big face-off with Roman Reigns and Tyson Fury, and they shook hands. I don't know what that was about, because then Roman Reigns leaves and Tyson Fury stays in the ring with Drew McIntyre. And this is going to sound like I'm now reviewing AEW, but I'm not. If you didn't see this, Fury gets in the ring, shakes hands with Roman Reigns, Roman leaves, and then Fury gives McIntyre a pep talk and decides to cheer him up by singing American Pie by Don McLean to Drew McIntyre, and then Drew joins in a duet.
And I think it's brilliant. I never even thought about this way to make people forget about the babyface losing a big title match. Just have them sing with a boxer right after the match.
This made me want to forget that I was ever born, much less what and why the song. First of all, he cheers Drew McIntyre up by singing American Pie after Drew McIntyre just got his ass beat and lost his chance at the championship in the most important UK event in 30 years. But why American Pie? Why not? They're in Cardiff. Why not Welsh Pie?
Maybe he's trying to signal him. Don't get on that private plane.
A long, long time ago.
I'm looking here. I
can still remember.
No, be careful. He's he's a highly litigious man, Don McLean. But what I see here is apparently Tyson Fury sang American Pie after beating Deontay Wilder, another great boxer of our modern times. So I guess maybe it's part of his thing. He goes in there and this is his song. He sings American Pie.
Yeah. Well,
that's all right. It'd be like an American boxer singing the Kinks after they won a match.
You really got me. Well, I can't remember if I cried when I read about his widowed bride, but I sure did cry when I heard them singing that song.